Hello, movie and entertainment fans. Welcome back to the Calvin Cam podcast, where we tackle all sorts of topics in the film, television, and video game world. I'm Calvin, and today we have another episode breakdown and review for HBO's The Last of Us. So let's go. We're on episode 7, Left Behind. All right, everyone, we are back again for another review. It is The Last of Us, episode 7, called Left Behind. And wow, like it's been 7 weeks, so that's pretty. We're going strong, and each episode that has come out has just been just amazing, just banger after banger. Some weaker than others, but I think that this episode was really good. I do have a couple of gripes with it, however. I really, really loved this episode. It is based off of the DLC for The Last of Us Part 1, which is called Left Behind, just like the title of the episode. And it pulls from that DLC, which is, for those of you who don't play video games, DLC is downloadable content. Sometimes it's additional story. And unfortunately, we don't just get games that are complete these days. So a lot of things are broken up into downloadable content, DLC. The Last of Us Left Behind was a great addition, though. I don't believe that it cost a whole lot more when it came out. I want to say it was probably like $14. It is a really good addition to the game. So to see it adapted into the show almost perfectly is great. This episode also pulled from a comic book, The Last of Us American Dreams. It's a Dark Horse comic and was also co-written by Neil Druckmann, who created the video games. So yeah, what I thought of this episode, it was really great. It touched on a lot of things, a lot of character development for Ellie. It kind of makes you, if you were to go back and watch episode 1 and 2, and it'd probably make you think about it a little differently now that we, in this episode, mainly get Ellie's backstory. Not all of it, but a good glimpse of what happens. And I'd say that this episode's main theme is about growing up, and it's about the loss of childhood as you're growing up. So let's get into the episode. The episode opens in right where episode 6 left off, after Joel was stabbed. We now have Ellie struggling to try and take care of him, kind of being very panic about it too, because she is afraid to lose anybody. And one of her biggest fears, like she has said before to Sam, was she is afraid of being alone. And Joel is all that she really knows in this world now. She has been with Joel for months. She's made her connection. He is kind of like a father figure to her now, as she is a daughter figure to him. So they are losing each other in this part. So she's being very, very frantic, very panicky about finding supplies for him. You could see Joel's just laying in the basement of this house that Ellie had dragged him to. He is bleeding out, kind of. She's making sure that he has a rag on him, putting pressure on the wound, as she's like rummaging and trying to find anything at all that can help. And as she is doing so, we get Joel telling her to just go, just leave. And we come across this thought, basically, that Ellie has a choice. She can continue on the journey. And it kind of almost like, if you didn't play the game, then you wouldn't know. Like, she could make that choice to leave, because she like reaches for a door handle and you think that she's going to leave, but she then pulls back. As she does later on in this episode, kind of showing what kind of person Ellie is. Ellie is not the person to walk away. Ellie is a person to get shit done and help friends. So another cool bit of character development for Ellie. Bella Ramsey, by the way, she did a fantastic job in this episode. Her acting was so good. More and more as time goes on, I am loving her portrayal of Ellie. It's great stuff. So now we get into the flashback in the QZ zone. We got Ellie kind of growing up in Fedra school, and she's in gym class. She's running around. Clearly, they want people to stay in shape because they're trying to raise people into, the militia that they're growing, whether or not what kind of job they're going to be, but as long as it's under, the federal rule. And Ellie seems like she is a troubled teen. So seems obviously she does not get along with people. She immediately gets into a fight with a girl over her Walkman, which is a prized possession of her. Ellie loves her music. We've seen it time and time again throughout the show. And if you played the game, you know that she very, very much loves music. So she gets in a fight, and then she goes and talks to an officer. She's like, okay, just go ahead and just put me in the hole, showing that she doesn't care about getting in trouble or not. And he's like, I can't just do that anymore, basically. You're not learning anything by going there. So I'm going to just be real with you, and you can either shovel shit, basically, or you can tell people to shovel shit. And those are your two options, Ellie. Grow up, get shit done. And I think that officer telling her the truth does help her grow as a person. She then, decides to like pretty much think on it, and you kind of see her go into that thought about it. And this is the first time we get to see Ellie's room and kind of like what Ellie is into. We open up on Ellie reading a Savage Starlight comic, which is a collectible from the games. And we get to see like all the stuff on her wall, like the Mortal Kombat 2 poster. We get to see some cassette tapes, if you pay attention, on dresser or nightstand, whatever. You see Aha, which Take On Me is a very thematic song in these games. There's a couple other cassettes, and there's dinosaur drawings on the wall, which we get to see. Ellie loves dinosaurs. It's a nod at the game. I think it's part 2 where there's like a flashback sequence where Joel it's the same one that I talked about in the other episode, where she's the astronaut. He takes her to a museum, and she gets to see dinosaurs and how they lived and stuff like that. So yeah, but then Riley breaks into her room, and she has been gone for 3 weeks. Riley is Ellie's best friend, who always protects her, as earlier in the episode before Ellie got into the fight, the girl that she fought was like, your friend's not here to protect you, isn't she? Ellie proving herself, I don't need protection, beats the shit out of her. So, but Riley sneaks back into her room and talks to Ellie about like what she's been up to. Riley was off joining the Fireflies, and she basically takes Ellie to an abandoned mall as a kind of goodbye gesture of, saying goodbye to their friendship. She doesn't tell Ellie this until later in the episode. Riley is leaving. So she's been stationed up at an abandoned mall, abandoned, quote unquote. And she has this whole like fantastical little date planned out basically for Ellie, showing her the 5 wonders of the mall. And the 5 wonders, I feel, are kind of like metaphoric as a growing up through childhood. I immediately love the relationship between the two actors. The chemistry was really good. It's really fun, very heartwarming, and we get to see, they go to the escalator. Ellie's introduced to escalators in a mall, and she goes crazy. And that's just like the game, so that's a cool little nod at the game. And we get to see some kind of backstory on the pandemic happening. Ellie asks Riley, like, why are some of the stores like bare and other stores are completely like untouched? And it's obviously, one of the stores that we see that's completely bare is Foot Locker, which is, it makes sense. Like, if you're looting, shoes are important. You're gonna need some good shoes in an apocalypse. So whether or not Jordans will do is another thing, but shoes nonetheless. So as they venture a little bit more into the mall, then we come across a couple more stores. There's a Victoria's Secret store where Riley's like, I can't believe, people used to wear these things. And they kind of like stare, and she's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, just imagining you in one of these. And, jokey. But it's not really a joke because they like each other. And so then, as Riley walks away, Ellie continues to stare at herself in the reflection of the glass in front of the lingerie. You know, it's kind of symbolizing that Ellie's trying to see how she would look as a grown, beautiful woman, and hopefully be attractive to Riley. But then she gets called away, and so they venture towards the 4 remaining wonders. The first one being the carousel. They go on there. They kind of have a magical little moment going around. And Ellie is just baffled. Amazing setting that is the mall. And then they get off. They go to the picture booth, which is the third one. And they take like 5 photos, which is another nod at the game. And we've seen the set of pictures that it prints out. And then after that, we move on. The fourth wonder, which is the arcade, and it's lit up. It's a nice surprise because Ellie loves video games, and so her and Riley find the Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet, and they play each other, and we kind of see that reference from, what was it, episode 3, where she references that Melina can eat you and spit you out in a bunch of bones. So we get to see Riley input that fatality, which is one of my gripes. I don't care what anybody says. Fatalities as a child were really hard to figure out in the early games of Mortal Kombat. I know that's a little nitpick at this episode, but I was like, there's no, like, I don't care if she's been coming here for weeks. Like, finding the right input was almost near impossible. During this part, though, like when they're in the arcade, the camera ventures out into the mall off of our characters, and we see a infected pretty much overgrowing against the wall of a store in the mall. That's my second gripe in this episode. Although I love the fact that the infect is there. That's not the gripe. The gripe is that Riley is supposed to be posted up in this episode at this mall. You would think that she would have scouted the whole facility before just taking like up place in a little nacho food court, and I just think that that is a little silly that she didn't scout it a little bit more. It made for an interesting thing. I do like the fact that she didn't find it at the same time, though. I know that I know that it's a gripe, but it's also a really cool part because the rest of the episode gave me serious like Alien vibes, because you know, in Alien there's one monster and it's on the ship and you don't know where it is. And so for the rest of the episode, we're like, there's one infected, it's in the mall, you don't know where it is. And for the remaining of the episode, you kind of get some interesting shots where it kind of like shows more than the focus on the character and shows like the background as if something's going to pop up. There are several shots where I saw it, and I I was watching it with my partner, and she was like, we got to stop this right now, like I can't watch this, is giving me anxiety. And I was like, yes, like I'm feeling the anxiety about it too. So it was really cool, kind of reminded me of Alien, but I really like that. The reveal for the infected could have been done a little bit better, which is my third gripe. Before I move on, the pun book had a really, really cool little nod at how young they are in the world. One of the jokes was, how does a computer get drunk? It takes screenshots. And they're both like, what are screenshots? I don't know. So it's just kind of funny. I like puns, though. So, but back into the Halloween shop, Ellie kind of enters this shop and gets scared because her and Riley got in a little bit of an argument prior, and she walked away because Riley told Ellie that she is leaving, and this was kind of a like, adios, see you later type deal. And so Ellie, obviously being upset that somebody she likes, somebody she cares about, is just walking out on her, tries to leave, but then we see her come back, just like what I was talking about in the beginning of this episode. Ellie tries to leave Joel, but doesn't leave Joel. So she comes back. She gets surprised by the motion sensor, like pop-up skeleton grave thing. And right there, I was like, okay, so the infected's going to trigger it. And that's how we're going to know that the infected is in the store with them. But that didn't happen. They had their little sit down, their little heart to heart. They danced. They shared a kiss. And then the infected came. They got into the tussle. They both got bit, just like the game. This is how we know that Ellie's immune, because she didn't change after this bite. And it's sad. Another sad moment. Another, you can only expect sadness coming from this show. They have two options, kill themselves or let it play out like some dramatic romance. So obviously they let it play out. They don't show it in the episode. Obviously Riley isn't immune, but Ellie is. And this is kind of set up why Ellie is the way that she is. She had to go through this traumatic loss, all at the same time that Joel's had to go through this dramatic loss and this trauma. So they've both been dealing with grief together this whole time on their journey. And now it's kind of like both of our main characters, Joel and Ellie, are now on the same level. And this is when we go back forward in time to the beginning of the episode. Ellie doesn't leave. She continues to look through the cabinets. She finds a needle and thread, and she goes back to Joel and holds his hand. And you see Joel hold her hand back, like intertwining their fingers, gripping, just like they care. They care about each other. They're not going to leave each other. And it is beautiful, and I loved it. I loved it. I'm going to give this episode a solid 8.5 out of 10. I really liked it. I am wondering, though, how are they going to wrap this show up? We have 2 episodes left. We have episode 8, episode 9. Are they going to be extra long episodes? Because as somebody who has played the game, there's a bit of content to cover, and I don't know how we're going to fit that in both episodes. So it has me curious. I'm excited, and I'm hoping kind of that it doesn't end the first game with just one season, even though I have a feeling that it will. I just kind of hope that it drags it out a little bit longer, because there's actually a lot more story that they could cover that goes beyond the end of the game. I'm eager to see how they're going to do this. But that's going to conclude today's review episode for The Last of Us, and we will catch you next week for another review. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to the Calvin Camp podcast. I'm super, super grateful. We are just climbing, people. We're hitting those milestones. I'm very, very grateful for all of you listeners. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Just go subscribe, support the channel. I appreciate you all so much, and thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time.